On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside episode 434 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains, and it's not a Senators game day. Ottawa was meant to host the Nashville Predators, Matt Duchene, Mark Borowiecki, but COVID had other ideas. Speaking of which, Uncle Deli, Michael Delzato, was on TSN 1050's morning show with Aaron Karolnik and Carlo Koliakovo, good friends of his, and he explained what the guys who are on protocol are going through, what their symptoms are. Stay tuned for the information on that. And then a really fun interview. I told her afterwards she's the perfect mix of energy and insight. It's Cheryl Pounder, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, a TSN analyst, and she talks to us about the Senators' defensive deficiencies, the growth of Josh Norris, and a whole lot more, including what Kim St-Pierre's career meant to young goalies, both male and female alike, as she was the first female goalie to ever be inducted into hockey's Hall of Fame. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day. Today is Thursday, November 18th. Pilsy, let's go back to that alternate reality. The Sens are hosting the Predators. Matt Duchene, is this guy one of the best players in the league?
I mean, he's back to his Ottawa Senators playing performance days. But yeah, it seems like he's really picked things up over in Nashville, which is good because they need him to pick things up. They need him and a lot of other guys to pick things up because that is a team that's going through a very interesting time right now. It would have been great for the Sens to play them. I think it would have been a matchup if both teams healthy. That would have provided a good game, but it's not going to happen now. We'll have to wait for it a little bit later in the season.
And it would have been nice. Ottawa would have hosted Nashville. Boro would have gotten an unreal ovation. There's no question about that. He will forever be a fan favorite in Ottawa. And he just hit the 400-game milestone. Nice. So really unfortunate the fans weren't able to be in attendance. No game. We'll find out when it's rescheduled for, but we'll have to wait to welcome Borowiecki back to his hometown, the nation's capital. It's really unfortunate, but necessary, as Michael Delzato made clear in his appearance on TSN 1050.
Yeah, I mean, he's right in the battle of it, right? So he knows what other players are going through and everyone in COVID protocol. I mean, there's 10 guys in COVID protocol for the Ottawa Senators. So from what he said, at least it doesn't sound like anything too serious is happening with these players, which is very fortunate. But some of them have lost their sense of taste and sense of smell, which, I mean, just speaking from a day-to-day living aspect, like that's tough. Like, especially you're an athlete, you got to make sure you're eating and drinking the right foods and fluids. And if you don't have a good sense of taste or smell, that's not going to be that enjoyable.
No doubt. So this pause, we expect it to end on Sunday and the team will travel. How brutal is it? Their first game back, of course, this is all unconfirmed, is a mile above sea level in Colorado. That's going to be tough.
Hopefully they can get there early and do some hikes or some weightlifting on top of a mountain or something. Yeah, because they're going to need that. And the road trip doesn't get any easier. Like at the start of the season, you would have said, oh, that's a nice, easy road trip. But the way the Ducks are playing, the way the Kings are playing, hell, even the way the Sharks are playing would make you take that statement back because those teams have been having decent seasons so far. So it's they've got their work cut out for them, that's for sure.
And we'll be with you every step of the way. We thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can subscribe and check out our interview yesterday with Craig Button. We're going right back to the well of TSN talent today, Pilsy. Always a real treat to chat with Cheryl Pounder.
Yeah, it's awesome having her on the show. This has was this her second or third time?
Second.
Probably second. Yep. Yeah, she's a great guest.
Full of energy.
Yeah, I mean, even before we're recording, we're having good chats and after and stuff like that. So that's how you know it's a good guest. And shout out to TSN for hiring her as an analyst. Great analyst and brings a different look and perspective than we're used to. So Cheryl Pounder, always welcome on this show. We had a great time chatting with her.
She did the Collinsworth slide in when she joined the Zoom call, wasn't there, and then just, on Monday Night Football, and then Collinsworth comes in with a great stat. And, well, this guy, it's fantastic. So really appreciate Cheryl for joining us. Before we get to her, Pilsy, I know you've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Take it away. Tell us about our friends at Bet Online and how they can follow you now to the pot of gold.
Well, guys, betonline.ag is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, including the Locked On Senators podcast. And look, it's been a while for me. I've been trying these parlays for all season. I haven't got a single one until last night. Only 3 games, and I finally hit the parlay. So all you guys counting up your money for fading me, well, if you faded, that's one you lost. And for anyone that has been following along with Pilsy's parlay, there you got a little bone there. So let's keep going. The important thing is to get off the sidelines, get into the action. Now that I got a win, I'm feeling good. We're getting back into the action, Ross. A lot more games on tonight, so I had to really pick and choose where I was going here. I decided to keep it to 2 bets here because I didn't want to get too excited. I had 3, and then I was like, okay, 1 win, maybe calm down a little.
You're going against Arizona after they blew up your parlay 2 days ago?
Yeah, there's no way the Arizona Coyotes win another game. There's just no way.
Too.
So Calgary Flames up against the Sabres. The Flames have been doing really well lately. So have the Sabres, but with no Craig Anderson, they're struggling a little bit more, the Buffalo Sabres. And Calgary has some of the best goaltending in the entire league. I think their team is finally clicking a little here. So I'm taking the money line at -178. Then, like Ross mentioned, the Arizona Coyotes, like that roster is just absolutely brutal. Wedgwood has helped out since he's come over, but I still think Columbus Blue Jackets are going to beat up on them. And in order to get any sort of good odds up against the Coyotes, you have to go puck line. So I'm going puck line here. That's at +160. So guys, Pilsy's parlay of the day, Calgary Flames money line, Columbus Blue Jackets puck line, put $10 in. You're going to win $30.61. And you can do that at betonline.ag. And the best way to do that, Ross, is use our promo code, which is Locked On. And you're going to get yourself a 50% welcome bonus. So you put $100 in, bingo, bango, bongo. You're going to get $50 in free play money. You can use that for parlays, and you can follow or fade, up to you. But fade season, we might be taking a break from fade season here. Hopefully Pilsy's parlay of the day stays hot. It's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts.
All right, Pilsy. Here she is. TSN analyst, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. It's Cheryl Pounder. I like your background setup, but you should just have all the gold medals, world champions.
I mean, if I had any gold medals, I would pull them out at any opportunity as well. So I don't blame you there.
They're my underwear drawer. If it's it's funny seeing all the women the other day, right? We were with everyone on the Hockey Hall of Fame induction. And we picked up right where we left off, but there was a lot of hardware on that sort of round table. We had a lot of fun on Monday. It was good.
No doubt. We got an article written about us once, and my mom framed it. So that's all I have in the background.
Love it.
All right. We now welcome a very special guest back to the show. She's a 8-time gold medalist, and that's in ice hockey. You can add a roller hockey gold medal, world champion to her resume as well. It's TSN hockey analyst and Olympic champion, Cheryl Pounder. Welcome back to Locked On Senators. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, guys, for having me. It's always fun to get on with you and chat hockey.
Exactly.
But all's going well. Yeah, all's going well despite the uproar in the COVID world for the Sens. But lots going on. Lots on the plate right now.
I know. We were so excited to see you on the TSN broadcast tomorrow. You've been doing a phenomenal job, and especially with the way the Sens season is going, defensive inefficiency has been a key component. Of course, you as a defenseman, I really enjoy the way you break that all down. But I want to start, before we get to that, with some topical stuff. You were at the Hockey Hall of Fame on Monday. We're a goalie-friendly show. Kim St-Pierre, the first female goalie to be inducted. Just for some of our listeners who are maybe a little young to when she was at the top of her game, what did she bring to the table night in and night out?
When I talk about Kim, I often say, what didn't she bring to the table? She was confident and poised, very calm, had a really relaxed presence between the pipes. And that's something that's signature of a lot of goaltenders that go on far. She had quiet feet in the net. But I would have to say one of the greatest things about Kim was she never gave up that softie. And you guys know, when you're watching the game and you get that one goal that is just deflating, and she just never did that. I can't remember a time where I would turn around and be like, come on, Kim. You know, she always managed to do it. And she had this unbelievable knack, which as a defensive defenseman, he was out there on the PK and was always in a shutdown role. I really respected the fact that she could anticipate the game way better than I could, right? So if someone was backdoor, she read it. I mean, Cami Granato back post, if I didn't find her, Kim knew she was there. And so she saved my butt a number of times, but just sort of all of those elements woven together. And I would say that has crowned her sort of that first goaltender to go in. And if you look back, it wasn't just Salt Lake City, guys. It was the year before in Minneapolis where she faced 35 shots in that game. We outshot, I believe it was 35-18. We should have lost. We should have lost heading into the Olympic Winter Games the year before, and we won. And she seized her opportunity. And then she would go on a year later to get that Olympic final. And I mean, the rest is history in terms of what she did that game with all of the penalties and how she stood on her head. So that was her sort of TSN turning point, but she was unbelievable throughout her whole career.
Man, one of the best setups too. Those Sherwood red, white, and black back in the day. That's just so sharp. So sharp.
Yeah, she always had that, the Sherwood, and it's funny, she always wears the McGill on the back because that's where it all started for her. She kind of got a second opportunity thinking about hanging up the skates, and she went to university under Peter Smith and found a way to fall in love with the game again. So when you talk about her being a martlet, it stayed on her mask. Her mask actually stayed the same throughout her career. She just kind of, you know, change things on it. It's very specific and personal to her. So the big M is there, as well as the brick wall, because that's what she was throughout her career, brick wall. And I had the opportunity to play throughout, and we had some fun stories to share, which probably can't share here, but a lot of great memories with Kim.
Did you hide the Laurier Golden Hawks logo anywhere on your gear?
Oh, here's the best. All right. So here we're heading off to our first ever world championship, we're coming back. It was her first world championship in 1999, and I was playing at Laurier. She's playing at McGill. We make it to the semifinal. Was it the semifinal bronze medal game? And I'm thinking I have to go to camp because Team Canada's meeting. But no, they let the goaltender go to compete against Laurier. So I wasn't there for Laurier, and she was between the pipes for McGill. So I will never forget that. I think I gave her the stare down the whole time she came back into camp. But I guess, hey, when you're a Hall of Famer, clearly she was better than I, right? So I had to go to camp. She got to play.
Yeah, the Hall of Famer tag is definitely another thing she can add to her resume. And I think we talked about it last time you were on the show, Cheryl, but for my money, she's one of the greatest women goaltender ever. And as is proof, being the first women goaltender in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And that performance she put on in the 2002 Olympics, as a young goalie myself, that was something that I watched and was amazed by and inspired by, and something that, you know, it's great to see a Canadian goalie, whether it's male or female, dominate in the way she did. What kind of impact do you think she had on younger female goaltenders, being able to look up to her and see someone shine as brightly as she did in the international stage?
Well, I think it's critical, and whether it's her Hall of Fame induction speech, which had me in tears, big surprise and kind of a marshmallow, but when she looked at her kids and having that dream from being a little girl, it really didn't seem feasible or possible. But I think when we all reflect back on that moment in 2002, in particular, what she did, I mean, standing on her head with all of those penalties and anticipating and just finding a way to keep us in that game, it was the visibility. What I mean by that, when we came home, guys, we were asked to come off the plane last. And we're sitting there like, we just want to get to the bar, right? At this point in time, we're like, we're home.
Don't blame
done.
Yeah.
And they had said no, because there's people waiting. And we were like, they watch? You know, people watched. And they really did. And people, in particular, young girls, tuned in for the first time. And so that next generation's dream was born watching the 2002 Olympic Winter Games. And I can bet that Kim would agree with myself that when we reflect on it, we're saying that's probably what means the most to us now coming out how many years later is that registration increased. The numbers were, exasperated in terms of registration. And the girls that are playing now, the women that are playing now, that was their first look at it, where their dream was born. So, the Emirates Mashmeyers of the world, those players that are at the Renee Games, they were there, they were watching. And so all of these things, we're not a fast watch that game in the finals that I want to go. And so Kim, a lot of people would say, oh, Carey Price, and I grew up dreaming about, and now people can say, I want to play like Kim St-Pierre. Yeah. And I want to follow that path. And the goaltending coach for Kim St-Pierre is working with my little girls team. And they're over the moon. You coach Kim St-Pierre. I mean, They weren't even around, guys. They weren't even around, right? But now they know the story, and that's the impact. And I think she's just a great role model beyond just being the player she was and the teammate she was, a quiet leader, but just sort of what she continues to do for the growth of the game.
I think that we'll give you some credit for this as well. But with Kim St-Pierre, her Olympic experience started with shutout. 4 straight. You guys in the round robin scored 25 goals and allowed 0. The semifinals in that Olympics, though, you're down 3-2 after the second period. Was there?
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. Thanks for the reminder. Thank you so much for that reminder.
5-0 in the third period.
But we lost 8 straight games, right, guys? So the part of the problem was, and you can look at whether you're an NHL team, whether you got to continually change while you're on top too. You have to evolve, and if you don't, you get stuck. And so winning the year before in sort of Kim's sort of breakout year, winning disguised our deficiencies, right? We stopped looking. So we went on to lose 8 straight games against the Americans. We get to the semifinal game. We're playing Finland. We're down going into the second, third period. Of course, Cassie Campbell-Pascal stands up and says, for some reason, we're going to get by this whole thing. And we needed just to find a way to believe in the room. And sometimes, that's what it takes with a group is you have to find a way within the room when everyone's telling you, you're not going to do it. And I will never forget going back on that ice in that third period and scoring 5 unanswered goals to win the hockey game.
Unreal.
And oddly enough, guys, you talk about an icebreaker. I come out, want to see my family, my loved ones. And I see my dad, and he's in a panic. And I'm like, Dad, what's going on? Do you have any extra gold medal game tickets? And I said, Dad, what are you talking about? He goes, well, it was tense there, kid. I was tense between the second and third, so I sold them.
What? No, he hedged his bet that early?
Please tell me he found a way to get some.
So guys, so he tells me this, okay? So then he comes up to me about an hour later and says, oh, that was tense, kid. He shows me 6 hours, just trying to break the ice. I didn't speak to him for 2 hours more. Anyway, but I think it is so difficult, for a goaltender in particular, to be able to not see a ton of shots in the round robin and then go into a final where you are under siege and have the mental capacity to redirect your rebounds, to hold on to it, to be aggressive in the United States, in America, and find a way. And so that to me is Kim St-Pierre, and picking the moment where you've got to perform. And through all of that, that's what makes her such a special athlete. I mean, you have that calming presence. It calmed us down because, right? I need a respirator with all the penalties, and so she knew when we needed a whistle. So she just knew she had that uncanny ability to read the game.
Yeah, it certainly was evident throughout her entire career. Now, transferring to the Ottawa Senators, who are looking to find that stability in net and on the back end, this Philip Gustafson situation is super intriguing to me, because it's almost like he's the starter, but he's either the starter in Ottawa or in Belleville. Due to the waiver situation, they don't want to lose Forsberg with the COVID, and you never know how many goalies you're going to need. They don't want to get into Sogard and Mandalese, the young guys. They want to let them marinate. How do you think he's handled this up and down year?
Well, guys, I mean, he's got the last 3 wins they've had in the month, right? So he clearly finds a way. And in particular, the game against Pittsburgh, even allowing sort of that comeback. And for a second, you're going, what's going to happen here? But then finding a way to shut the door. And that's what it takes. And so I think he's done a tremendous job and a real front runner. I mean, I don't think Matt Murray, obviously the Sens Nation loves Gustafson, right? So I don't think Matt Murray has really done himself any disservice this year. I don't think he's, but again, Gustafsson is been key. He's found a way to make the key saves the right time. And under all of this, it's been so difficult. So for me, I mean, it's a tough one, right? He belongs, there's a 1A and 1B here, and someone's got to take and grab hold of it, but they got to get through this whole COVID situation to be able to figure out what their team's going to look like, because let's be fair here. Playing 22 hours from Pittsburgh to Calgary with 10 players out isn't exactly ideal, and you can see why the fumes were on empty.
Yeah, and we're growing to love Gus, Pilsy? At least I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like any young goaltender, right? Like, it's going to take time before you're really comfortable, and the Ottawa Senators have struggled in front of him, so it's been especially difficult for Gustafsson. Now, Cheryl, I want to get your opinion on, obviously you haven't had to deal with COVID protocols as a player, but let's just say injuries or things like that. What's kind of the mentality in the room when it's not just one guy, it's not just two or players, it's multiple players are injured and multiple other players need to step up and fill different roles? Like, what's the energy in the room when that's going on? Like, is it kind of a mix of like anxious nervousness and disappointment, but also excitement about different players getting opportunity? Or how do you deal with that as a locker room?
I think it depends what player you are.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you're an AHL guy right now, you're going, whoa, it's time.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a Sokolov, you're saying, you know what, I gotta get my shot off. Mm-hmm. Right. I got a lethal shot. I got to find a way. I'm not the strongest skater. I got to find a way to get to the right spots on the ice to be able to get this shot off. Right. If you're a young guy coming in on the back end, which is more difficult, in his first game, you got to find a way to play strong minutes, and it's easier said than done. But I always look at the energy in a team as sort of like a batting lineup. When one is fired, you got to get it in sync. You can't just have one. It takes the first player to get on base for someone else to kind of regenerate, and then you see this wave of energy. But someone's got to take the bull by the horn, and a lot of the time it is your teammate, right? You got to come up big. But it's very difficult to work on those deficiencies, say defensively, when you're sitting with a roster who's missing 10 guys. So for me, there's opportunity here for some of these young guys who are placeholders right now to say, this is what I can bring. So maybe when we get a couple of veteran guys back, you leave me in here and we see what I can do. But they have to play to their strengths. And so these are Parker Kelly, these are energy players. Well, this is your time to create energy, and it starts on the forecheck. It starts the ability to turn that puck over and keep your feet moving. So, and as you know, they're gonna have to be disciplined. You can't be taking penalties, especially when your PK is struggling, because all your PKers are out. So again, your stick positioning, all the details of the game become very, very important. And a lot of the time, the AHL guys, this is their first spot, and it's a difficult situation for them to be in because they don't have a veteran guy beside them saying, hey, I got your back if you make a mistake here. So you got to seize the opportunity. And it's interesting. When I was 17, I got a call to go to my first ever national selection camp. Never been to one in my entire life. And it was because a veteran was injured. I ended up making the team. So you want to make an impression if you're these young players, even in a difficult and challenging environment, and you want to stay. So you got to fight for that. You got to fight for that space. And I think that wave of energy can go across the lineup, as we saw, although they were somewhat outplayed in Pittsburgh, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you talk about wanting to stay, the roster far from set for whenever the Senators do get back. But I did find it newsworthy that they sent a bunch of them back, but not Lassie Thomson. Did that surprise you, or did he really earn this extended stay? Well,
I think, you had a rough one against Calgary, but you got to look at a young guy, right? And in particular, you guys know, I'm going to preach till the cows come home. It takes a little bit longer for those NHL defensemen, which is why we're seeing Brandstrom still hanging around, trying to get opportunity after opportunity here. But you look at a guy like Lassie Thomson in his first game. I thought he played strong. He's played a lot of minutes, over 22 minutes. He played on the PK. I think he had their most minutes as a defender on the PK.
Yeah, he
did.
So
here's a guy who can play between the dots. He's good gap. I mean, that's a massive piece to playing deep and, making sure you have a good gap and having the confidence to trust your feet. And I think he did a really good job. And you could see sort of that defensive angle. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but can you see beyond it and the greater picture of what his trajectory can look like. And I know I had the opportunity a few weeks ago, I got to do a Marlies Belleville game in the booth, and with JBD and Brandstrom was there, Lassie. And the thing is, you don't always notice, JBD's, you don't always notice Lassie. You notice Brandstrom because he uses his feet to come up the middle of the ice in the zone exits and jumping in. But right now, the Sens need strong defensive presence, right? They need that the strong in their own zone. And I think that's a big piece of it. And I'm not surprised that he's sticking around. And
right shot, which you like to see, just like you.
Yeah, just like me, right shot. I hated to play the offside, guys. Let me tell you, I was terrible picking up the puck, in particular in my own zone, right? So with certain guys, they have the ability to play the offside. In particular, they can handle the puck a little bit differently. But your strong physical guys, can play the offside. But it's one of those things. He's a right shot. Getting the opportunity. It'd be interesting where he fits going down the road. But I certainly want him to continue to play because that's. I think it's a perfect opportunity for him. It might also be an opportunity to get Stützle in the middle. Just saying.
Yeah, and we're hoping to see Lassie up here as well because it's not like the other veteran guys have been doing an amazing job instead of him. So why not give him the opportunity now? That's what I think here.
Well, yeah, you're in the situation and you put him on the right. He's been the Shabbat. There's different angles at which you can see him at. And he's a righty. You're looking for that. You got Shabbat playing X how many minutes. We loved him with Zub. I know I loved him with Zub. Hated the fact that they had to separate them. And when you're forced to do things like that, you're changing your lineup completely on your back end because you went from making a mainstay pair, not as effective. So, who can bump in? And I think this is a massive piece for the Sens right now. Of course, we know UND's got one that is fresh. And how long is Anderson going to be? So again, a lot going on the back there, but they certainly need a top four guy to fill the void. And like we've been saying forever, they need another center.
Yeah, I'm going down to the Ralph this weekend, Cheryl. I might throw him in my trunk and bring him to Ottawa myself.
Do it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, Ross, if you're doing that, you got to make sure you leave before 8:30 so he doesn't fall asleep in the car with you because he's got to get to bed early there.
Last year, he's an 8 p.m. bedtime guy.
Hey, rest is a weapon, I've heard anyways. So we talked about some of the young guys on the back end playing in the NHL. Now I want to get to an even younger guy who has more NHL experience than any of those players, and that's Tim Stützle. It's his sophomore season, classic sophomore slump kind of stuff happening, but also, it's hard to expect him to be able to bounce back and have a good second season when the team isn't performing well. How much of his struggles offensively and defensively do you think are just a part of this sophomore slump, or how many of them can you chalk up to just the struggles that the Ottawa Senators have had as a team as a whole to start things here?
Well, I think to start off, you look at his creativity and his offensive prowess, and everyone can see the elite skill set this guy has, right? It's very transparent, and the number of goals he could have or should have had. And I know that's that's the big thing for when you talk anything, how many posts you can hit or how many misses you have, but it's still
the nerds call it expected goals.
Yes, I don't talk to him. Yeah.
That's why we like you, Cheryl.
So, I think when you look at that, you see that potential. What I see with him sometimes, and this is just the eye test again, and for myself, is a guy that just waits a little too long to make a play, and then that sometimes it dies on his stick. And so you don't want the play to continually end with him. You want it to continue with him, and he has that ability. So for me, it's also a product. His whole life, he's been the number one guy, and he's going to hold the puck a little bit longer. So yes, as he physically matures, becoming stronger defensively and recognizing what zone he's in. But again, the skill set is there, right? And I'm not so sure, as a left winger, clearly he's been that for a number of years now. In this particular environment during COVID, do you throw him in the middle?
I would.
And one of the things, and the one thing, where I've been kind of massaging this through myself, just kind of looking at the roster and floating pieces in as I do, that's kind of my prep, is it gets him off of the wall as well. And It gets him into the middle of the ice. And so one of the things, you get more options from the middle of the ice. And that's where you typically, you see guys work well when he has more than one option. So, wondering if that might be, given the situation that they are in, with Pinto out now, to give him that opportunity, because again, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place anyway in the moment. So is that one of the opportunities you give him? I guess the question mark might be in his own zone, the struggle down low and supporting defensively. But right now you got to generate some offense too. And so where's the trade-off? And maybe getting him to the middle of the ice, get him a little more confident, might be something.
Yeah, when you're so short at center already before the season, I was shocked they didn't add another piece in free agency or in trade before training camp. And then Shane Pinto seems like he's the X factor of this team. 12-3-1 when he's in the lineup. And when he's out, they have like 15 wins in 50 games. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, the guy's 17 games of 12 wins. And you look at that, and it's funny. I did his first game. I was on the panel, and I remember I was watching him, and I turned and I said to Lindsay, I said, like, the puck is just finding him all the time. So I've got to figure out whether this is just luck today or whether he is just in the right position, because I didn't know him well enough to know whether that was just, he's just so strong positionally with his stick and his timing in particular. And for a young guy to be so strong down low in his own zone in terms of his positioning and the zone exits. And that's what I find is the way he times on the exit and his support allows that 3-4 foot pass often. And also allow the defenseman through the middle of the ice to also be part of the zone exit, which I'm not seeing as much right now. So I think that's, a big piece in it to his mindset. And when you talk about a Stützle, I don't know if he has that, but certainly Stützle has that elite skill. It's just a matter of managing it, not trying to get too pretty with it, and just make a play. So looking forward to them getting out of this COVID stuff and back towards what their lineup's going to look like, and the flexibility to have him play with some key guys.
Yeah, well, he played his best hockey when Pinto joined the team last year as well. He had the hat trick against the Winnipeg Jets, and certainly seemed like he had confidence with a centerman who could dish and find him in the right places coming out of the zone with speed, which was a huge, huge bonus.
Well, yeah, and that's a massive piece to Pinto's game, right? The ability to get it quickly and just dish it quickly. And coming through that neutral ice with speed, what it does, and it just provides so many offensive zone opportunities and varied attacks, which is where you want Stützle, right? You want him off of the rush there. So it's, that's something that's certainly, it's a gaping hole right now without Pinto there.
Yeah, and without Pinto there, at least, thank goodness, Josh Norris has emerged into the centerman that we had all hoped he would when he was a big part of that Karlsson trade from San Jose. And he's Brady Tkachuk's best friend, so the chemistry works out great with those two on that line. What can you tell us about Josh Norris that you've really liked from him so far in his NHL career, Cheryl?
Well, aside from on the power play, I love him where he's
that
always
shot is incredible. Oh my God.
It's one of those things, and you can almost, before the game, you're like, okay, is he going to get one? Is he going to get one from that area? And so I'm constantly watching it. But I'm finding he's working well in tighter spaces now. I think he's the ability to make a play when there's players on him. Clearly, he's going to get some tough minutes, some tough defense on him, in particular with this line. I've liked them on the forecheck too. Brady Tkachuk is in there, and I find that they read staying above the passing option, jumping quick, and creating turnovers. So when they're through the neutral ice and in the offensive zone, they're creating so much. And that's something that I continually am seeing. I think he's 6-4 right now. He's got about 10 points, I think.
Correct.
And you're seeing that chemistry, and I like that Brady's on that line, because although we'd like to see Stützle, right? There's this catch, but with Brady, the ability to get in on and be physical on the puck, on the forecheck, and have a finisher and a puck mover too, like Josh Norris. So I think we're starting to see these young guys sort of mature, their skills mature. They're with figuring out less time and less space, and moving the puck accordingly when they've been on, for sure.
Yeah, what's interesting is it seems like the coaching staff and management, they brought in Norris to play with Tkachuk, and they've been tied at the hip when Strutzler and Batherson have had great chemistry as well. So I wonder what it would look like if you mixed in Norris as the centerman on that line, because it certainly adds a different element than when they played with Tierney as the centerman for those two wingers with so much skill in the past. Although Tierney seems like he's one of those coaching helpers where you just hit it off them and it goes in the net so far.
Yeah, isn't that a nice one? Yeah, well, I'll take them any way I could get them. I never got any. So, I take them any which way I could get them. So let's just put it that way.
No doubt.
I think the Sens will right now too.
Yeah, and he had such a long drought last year. That must be great. Cheryl, I want to end on a couple notes, but one, I loved your analysis before the Tampa game, discussing what the Sens' problem is in their own zone. Too much puck focus, you were saying, and not enough communication. How is that problem able to be fixed?
Well, I think it's awareness, and I think it's a mindset heading in. And what I noticed was we talked about the defensive structure, but it's also on the entry, right? We're giving up a lot of odd man rushes, first of all. And then when you don't, you have numbers, you're just chasing, right? So guys on the puck, and it's just a numbers thing, just the awareness of, no, I got backdoor, I'm not following the puck. And so if you had a libero or you telestrator, you could just draw lines and say, why'd you leave him? Like, why'd you leave him? And so that's, to me, a sign just of the game is fast sometimes, and it needs to be slowed down. When you're struggling and the game's it's just so fast and it's speeding up and you don't know why you can't slow it down the way you would normally see it. And sometimes I think that's a product when you try to do too much because you just want to go get the puck. Well, you got to be smart about that. You have to be poised. You have to be patient in the way you cover as well. And so when you're tracking back, you have to track back with purpose, right? You're not just tracking back for a puck. You have to be aware. And so these guys are so smart, right? The moment you turn your feet and your head, like lane's open, catch you later, guys right open, bam, right in front, and Gustafson or Forsberg, Matt Murray, and it's a point blank save. So they've got to really hammer that out and be able to work on that. It's not so much the one-on-one battle that concerns me. It's just where they are and their positioning, right? The recognition and the awareness of their D-zone coverage in particular, collectively as a group off of the rush as well.
Yeah, I love that analysis, and hopefully the Senators can use some of that advice and turn things around here. And the final question for me, Cheryl, and thanks so much for joining us. Women's hockey, as we talked about with the Olympics and more younger girls joining hockey, what's the next big thing for women's hockey coming around the corner?
Well, we've got the rivalry series coming up, and I'm doing the call with Kenzie Lalonde, and we're in Kingston on Sunday, the 21st, and then we're in Ottawa, everybody, Ottawa on Tuesday, and that's where it all began. If you remember them wearing pink in 1990, no, I was not playing. I'm not that old. However,
you were working on your roller hockey game at that point.
I did. I was right in the roller hockey world. That is correct. I was 10, right? I was 10. No, maybe eight when I went to my first world championship. But yeah, so it's where it all began. And I think that's, the electric vibe of the rink, the venue. And I think there are so many wonderful hockey teams in that corridor. And I'm hoping that they all come out and cheer some of their Team Canada, Team USA athletes on, because these are the teams that are going to represent their countries in Beijing. And so it's kind of like World Juniors, right? Their hearts are on their sleeves because they're fighting for that opportunity to get the opportunity to wear a maple leaf. And I think if there's a game that you can go to and support, I think the women would love to have you there.
And they're 2-0 so far during this rivalry series. Canada 3-1 win in Pennsylvania, and then a 3-2 win in Connecticut. So 2 road wins for the Canadians coming up. 4
straight, everybody, for the first time. And I don't know how long, I should probably know that stat, but Poulin, who scored with 7:22 of overtime in August to get the first world championships since 2012. You can bet she will be dressed in Ontario for those games. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn in saying that, but again, giving them an opportunity to show this is, the best of women's hockey. It's a high, fast-paced game, and I think there's a lot of energy, and there's up-and-coming stars on the ice, right?
Yeah, Emily Clark is a friend of ours, and she is electric out there. Jamie Lee Rattray, I grew up playing against her. She played boys hockey growing up. She was with the Canada Lasers growing up there. So will she be in the lineup? And is this going to be very much what you see in Beijing for the Olympics?
Yeah, it's not going to be far off, Ross, because I honestly think that they are going to be making some cuts most likely after these games. So
that's an added layer of intensity. They're playing for their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 29 players roughly on each side right now fighting for the 23 spots. And these games are where the evaluation tool happens, right? It is the measuring stick. It is kind of like these games that, your AHL players are playing and they got to go, they have to make an impression. These young players, not even young, some of the veterans who are fighting for their lives here are doing it. And that's why the energy is so high. There's a lot of pressure, but as we know, playing for your country or whether it's an HL team, pressure is a privilege and you got to find out how to deliver. and these women will need to deliver. So I expect there may be a cut, and then there will be 3 games in December in the United States, and then your team will most likely be named by Christmas. So it's going to very much look like what Beijing is going to be, and you can expect that there will be some assembled lines that will look very similar. And yeah, just looking forward to seeing who's going to break through in those final spots. So a lot on the line for a lot of players. So it's going to be pretty emotional, and it's going to be a fun one to call.
So Sunday, 5 p.m. at the Leon Center in Kingston, and then Tuesday at TD Place Arena. Still tickets available. Get yours now. And if you say Cheryl in the corridor, let her know that you loved her on Locked On Senators. You're one of our favorite friends of the show, Cheryl. Really appreciate you stopping by, and we look forward to doing this again down the road.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Stick taps to Cheryl for joining us. What an absolute beauty. Great get. And make sure if you're in Kingston on Sunday or Ottawa on Tuesday, go check out the women's national team, the rivalry series. That's an awesome, intense matchup, and I'm jealous that I won't get to attend it.
Yeah, I mean, Ross, like Cheryl said, these have big implications on the Olympics, right? So
huge. These
are going to be games where people are fighting for their jobs, and teams are trying to get ready for the biggest stage of it all, the Olympics in Beijing coming up here. So definitely, if you want to get to watch some of that on our homeland in Canada and in a proper time zone, not a Chinese time zone, then this is your chance to check it out.
Absolutely, and it's on TSN. Cheryl Pounder will be doing the color analyst for it. And on tomorrow's Locked On Senators, it'll now be, what, day 6 without Sens hockey?
I haven't been counting.
I'm not counting that Sunday game either. That was just gas tanks empty, nothing left, morale low, so many guys in protocol. Drake had to go. Once Drake went in, it was just like, what are we doing here? Like 10 guys, your leading scorer, and all that. But it sounds like they're on the mend now. Nobody is risked at going to the hospital. So you just got to ride this wave out. And
most of those guys will be back now, right? Like almost all of them, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not Drake.
I still have this up. So let's take a look at the dates here. So it's the 18th. So it was initially 10 days that you had to stay on. So even as of today, Mete, Gambrell, Connor Brown, Nick Holden, Austin Watson should all technically be able to return. And then if they play on the 22nd, Pilsy, it will only be Nikita Zaitsev and Drake Batherson that would be unavailable. Now, what makes this even more difficult, however, is what does that mean for this road trip, right? Yeah. Like, how is Drake going to meet them in Los Angeles? I don't know what's going on, because you got to think if they're in protocol, putting them on the team plane is probably out of the question.
And I mean, Ottawa to LA, that's a long drive for Drake to do by himself. Definitely Rock Auto's going to have to help him out with that one. But yeah, that's a good question, Ross. I'm not sure how that's going to work. And because
I don't think you just getting the PJ. I'll just put it out.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, but I mean, it's Drake Batherson, your leading scorer. He just scored. He got 4 points in his last game. If there's a way to get him there, you're getting him there.
Yes, you have to. There's no other option, but we'll hopefully learn a little more sooner rather than later. I don't know what the NHL is doing, if they're waiting to see if there are other games that will need to be postponed before making a decision. We know that January 10th, by then, the Olympic participation will either be 100% in or out. And should that be the case, then what happens next? Do you put those games that are rescheduled in where the Olympics would be if they are canceled? Or is it going to be at the end of the season? No idea. But to leave these games in limbo, how long can you do it?
I don't know, especially when it's 3 different teams, right? Like if it was 1 or 2 different teams, maybe you can figure that out a lot easier. But Ross, how weird would it be if, and no one wants this to happen, or at least I don't think so, if the NHL players did not go to the Olympics, and then there's just a 3-week break of no NHL hockey, maybe a couple postponed games splashed in there. Like, that would be brutal as well.
We're grizzled veterans at that, Pilsy.
But I'm not cheering for that. Like, we've had enough Sens hockey postponed and canceled, and we've been waiting. So I want as much hockey as we can get.
Yes, as do I, Pillsy, as do I. And we will get World Juniors. We know that.
Yes.
Craig had some great things to say about Jake Sanderson, Tyler Clevin, and Ridley Gregg on yesterday's show. So tomorrow, we want to get into a topic of who the most underappreciated Senators prospect is. And bonus, we're going to give our top 5, our power rankings of Senators prospects who have not played a pro game yet. And that's going to really cut this list down because even like 19-year-old Robbie Jarventi, who could be at the World Juniors again, he probably wants redemption after 0 points in 6 games last year. He's still playing in Belleville. Igor's in Belleville. Angus has played in Belleville. And it's going to be a lot less of a list, but I think we're going to get some conversation going about other guys like Zach Ostapchuk. Is he a guy who could make that list? Carson Latimer.
Yep.
And we'll dive into those types of players on tomorrow's Locked On Senators. Of course, we'll have a preview of the Nodak Sens weekend as I'm heading down to the Ralph for a pair of games. And unfortunately, no Luke Lohite, though, Pillsy. No Luke Lohite. He's got a long-term injury, and he'll be unavailable for Minnesota Duluth, but still going to be a great rivalry matchup between those two historic franchises. So lots to look forward to tomorrow's Pillsy. You better start rating those lists.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get going on that. And hey,
because even Ridley Gregg, he's played with Belleville. He doesn't count for this.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that list, there's going to be a short amount of people on that list. And I mean, Ross, we might as well start getting into prospect mode here because I have a feeling we're going to be geared up prospect talk a lot more here.
No, I disavow that statement until at least the year that the draft is in. We're waiting until 2022 to even discuss that. But for today, we say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Cheryl Pounder. Make sure that you're locked on to all her analysis because it really is top of the line. Also, Craig Button and the big interview, it's still to come. We had to push it down. The Senators, of course, going through unprecedented times. So as the world has had to do, we've got to pivot and keep this train rolling. We thank you so much for listening, for making us your first listen of the day, and whenever you're craving your Ottawa Senators content, you can follow us on Twitter at SenCentral, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram, and download wherever you get your podcasts. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.